Welcome to DOS Won't Hunt. I'm Jean-Pierre Ruth for Information Week, and in this episode, we will be touching on a very hot button topic. There's no hiding from the fact that we are in a very intense political and social time, and there are times where the big major factors of what happens in the world can actually affect potentially cyber threats and misinformation in the workplace. There have been some surveys that show that when there is an event that then potentially can relate to events and incidences that organizations, enterprises need to look at and try to cope with internally, sometimes from internal actors, sometimes externally. And there's no hiding from the fact that certain most recent events have created kind of like a hot button point right now that we're at. And today I'm going to be speaking with some very security and other experts to kind of talk about what are some of the thoughts, what are some of the approaches, what are some of the things, not only just an idea of best practices that organizations should have in general for cyber threats and, kind of trying to rein in misinformation that might happen within their organizations, but also the idea of when there are potentially can be spikes in behavior that they may need to take special action for. So in today's episode, and we've got a very full house, we have Eric Wenger, Senior Director, Cyber and Emerging Tech Policy with Cisco. Roman Arutyunov. I practiced it several times. Apologies for that. Co-founder and Senior Vice President of Products with Xage Security. Is that Sage or is it Xage?
Xage, that's right, Xage.
Okay, Xage. Great. Dennis Dayman, CISO with Code 42. TK Keanini, CTO with DNSFilter, and Akash Agarwal, Director of Engineering and DevSecOps with LambdaTest. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And again, I apologize for hashing over your names. I appreciate your knowledge and your input for today's conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. So again, we are going to be talking about the idea of addressing cyber threats and the potential for misinformation that might come up in the workplace, in this really intense time in this political landscape that we are in right now. There might be, threat actors from outside organizations that just might want to pick on an organization and just kind of, drag them into something that they might not even want to be part of, or to, maybe an organization is taking a particular position and they want to retaliate. But then it can also be somebody internally who might take it upon themselves to say that they either don't like a position that their organization has taken, or maybe they don't like the fact that the organization has not taken a position on anything on the current political landscape. So, Eric, I was hoping you could lead us off with the idea with a thought and question about how proactive can or should organizations, enterprises be about really looking to defend against misinformation, or maybe not just information, some kind of subterfuge, cyber attack from within that might make use of company resources and try to, work their way from the inside out. Should there be a heightened internal policing that goes on? Is that feasible to try to really ratchet down on people within organizations based on versus how organizations have been proceeding?
At Cisco, we have a pretty freewheeling culture. The ability to have open dialogues among our employees, between our employee groups, and it's one of the things that makes the company dynamic and a source of innovation. We're really proud of that. And as part of that, we also have expectations that our employees are going to treat each other with respect and recognize that they come from different places, that they show up to work as themselves, and they have the ability to express themselves, but they also do that in a way that is respective of the differences that we have. And this is a time, obviously, where not just here, but in many places around the world, we're seeing elections that are closely contested. I think we can look optimistically about the way that very large elections have successfully taken place this year already in India and Mexico and the UK. But the larger point is that it's important for us, all the companies that we represent, to allow our employees to be able to engage with each other respectfully. I think it's also important to recognize that as we are operating in an increasingly zero trust environment where we've moved away from fixed perimeters and networks, we have employees that are, I'm right now in my home. Many Cisco employees work from remote locations using personal devices that they've enrolled, but they're using those devices to access data, applications, and workloads that are in the cloud without ever touching the perimeter of what will be the fixed network. And so it's increasingly important for sophisticated entities like all of ours to look for sources of threats everywhere, both inside of organizations and outside of organizations, in terms of the technology, the data, and the people. And so we do that in a risk-based way. And I think that this is just one of the factors that we have to consider as we're engaging in that kind of threat modeling and risk assessment and application of controls.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you for that, Roman. And again, I apologize for messing up with your last name, even though I practiced it. Next question for you. What cybersecurity challenges do organizations face in this kind of landscape that we're in? Very intense and also very partisan. And it's not only just, overall in the world right now, it hasn't just been about U.S. politics, but there has been an intense kind of, scene that we've seen many other geographies right now. So what are some of the kind of challenges that you're kind of seeing and hearing from organizations?
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, the sort of the political and geopolitical changes, present an opportunity for many of the ransomware malware groups out there, right? And it's been malware has been, and ransomware especially, has been on the rise, with not only in numbers but also in dollar amounts that are being extracted, right? So organizations are continuing to struggle, and with that, it's I think that in the recent years there's been a lot of focus on identifying the ransomware. Sort of the feeling has been that, well, you just got to expect that the threats are inside and the malware is inside, the ransomware is inside, and you just got to go look for it. So organizations have been spending a ton of resources on trying to figure on detection capabilities, threat identification capabilities, and that has led to really an overly focused approach on that specific topic. Resources are being allocated to it. They're busy trying to identify these threats, and everything's looking like a threat, and it's becoming a really tough problem, right? So I think there's a shift going on in the market today where organizations are now focusing on really shrinking that attack surface. Think like Eric was mentioning, zero trust approach, zero trust access and protection. Xage focuses on delivering these types of solutions to really control their attack surface and then make it much easier to identify threats, right? So that's sort of one of the biggest things I wanted to mention. The other one is, it's uncertainty in the political environment. There is progress on regulation in our country in cybersecurity, right? Both from various organizations, sector leaders, as well as organizations like CISA engaging with the community. So in this times of change in our government structure, I just hope that we continue to make progress on that, right?
Great, thank you very much for that. Dennis, can you get your thoughts in terms of, obviously we're talking about the potential for these threats to be heightened because of, the political landscape and various other tensions, but are there other types of, I want to say, attacks of opportunity that are also kind of trying to just make use of that? It might not be driven so much by these particular, politically oriented things, like where they're like, are we still seeing like, phishing attacks happening? Are we seeing, other types of things that are just kind of like, hey, since other people are behaving badly, why don't I just kind of try to, see what I can do to break in and kind of like see as an opportunity. We're seeing things that are maybe unrelated directly that are happening.
Yeah. I've luckily I've spent several decades of my career in the messaging industry, actually, and defending, if you will, the technologies that we use today, like email, SMS, and those sorts of things. And some of the organizations that I get a pleasure to work with are organizations like the Messaging Anti-Abuse Working Group, which is a large subset of organizations, all kinds of companies, communication providers, social media providers, that are constantly looking for ways to ensure that we keep this medium as clean and as usable as possible. And you're right. Phishing attacks are on the rise. As we were just talking a little bit about the political aspects, we look about the war in the Ukraine, we look at sort of what's happening with Russia attacking, the Ukraine and their infrastructures. And so what you begin to see is that as they're attacking those infrastructures, other organizations are now looking at how do we get into critical infrastructures. Well, a lot of that is still through the really more easier ways of using phishing and vishing, because we all really sort of rely on these technologies day in and day out, right? I mean, this is our life. A lot of these attackers know that we're very busy. It's very easy for us at times to just click on something thinking that, oh my gosh, this urgent message has popped up, or hey, my CEO, all of a sudden needs to get a hold of me, and I want to make sure that I, handle whatever it is that they need to do. But because again, we're relying on these communications and these devices, and again, we're very busy, that these attackers, which they're very hard to find, and again, even in the anti-spam sort of world, most of these folks are in countries that it's very easy to hide. It's very easy to get extradition sort of issues, put into play if we can, find out who they are. But they are becoming also increasingly sophisticated, right? They're shifting, again, those attacks from email to mobile and through other channels, including the social media channel. My sons, who are old enough, right? They're adults and they're living on their own, but they're not just seeing the email attacks, not just the text attacks, but they're seeing it through the TikToks and these other things that are happening as well. So yeah, we're seeing that. We're seeing it through voicemails and text as a part of a two-pronged phishing approach. And then worst case scenario, even in the business email compromise campaigns that we're also seeing. But again, it's really cheap. It's very easy because again, you don't really have to have a lot of resources. There's a lot of platforms out there that you can go buy an account for pennies on the dollar and then launch your campaign to achieve whatever goal that it is, knowing that you're not going to be caught over time.
Sure. Thank you for that. TK, for you, can you speak to, I guess, a little bit about like what is overall at stake, and also the idea of, are there kind of like exploits, kind of like following on to what Dennis was speaking to, other exploits that kind of really kind of capitalize on the idea of fear and unrest? What are we? I mean, we can talk about like saying, worrying about, somebody might like, hack a website and put a message up that they're unhappy with. But what are some of the things that are really of concern?
I guess the main thing that's of concern is, this threat vector is very innovative. We're in a game of innovation, really. They innovate, we innovate, round and round we go, right? And so you have a situation where emotions are heightened, or maybe it's seasonal, maybe it's Christmas shopping time. But you see a trend shift always on their innovation side to where human emotions are really at play, and our decision making is compromised. To put that was sort of 1.0. 2.0 of that is we are just fooling senses. Our human senses are being fooled. So this is actually why we need machines to help us in this effort. Like, when you look at a homographic text string, and the capital L is, a lowercase l is a capital I. You simply put, like, you're being fooled, and you're probably going to go to a place that you shouldn't be.